Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse, and we have a very special guest to do a live Q&A today, which I'm very excited for. But before we jump into that, what we're going to be talking about today is the bigger picture of the repercussions of what happens when we open our border and let anybody walk in and invite them to walk in and allow criminal governments to release their prisons and let them to walk in. So what we're looking at happening in America right now is the domino effect of what's happening on the border. So 2 nights ago, I did a live show covering what's happening in Aurora, Colorado, where a handful of apartment complexes were basically taken over by Venezuelan gangs. And this is a particular Venezuelan gang, which is it's a very serious international crime syndicate. It's not some local gangbanger. This is like an MS-13 scale gang. But it wasn't just Aurora. We also saw robberies. We had, jewelry store robberies in Denver because, Aurora is a suburb of Denver. So we saw the whole city being affected by this. And just so happens to be that it was a sanctuary city. So they welcomed a lot of these illegals to come in, and now they're dealing with it. And so we've also got reports, as of the evening of that show, that there's some potential activity in Chicago, a 911 calling in, talking about, I think it was 32 different armed Venezuelans potentially taking over an apartment building. And we're seeing it now spread across the United States. And so my guest today, J.J. Carrell, was a border agent for over 2 decades. He absolutely understands what's happening on the border, but he also understands what's going on in America. And so he's right in the process now, very close to launching a phenomenal documentary, which we'll be talking about, which is he's been going across the nation looking at how these illegal immigrants are affecting city by city and what the big picture is. Because I think there's a lot of folks that are thinking, okay, if this is already happening and it's spreading in different cities, sanctuary cities and non-sanctuary cities, how long is it before this happens in my own town? Is my town safe? There's a lot of questions that we're going to be getting into. Also, just a reminder for folks that if you have any questions at all, especially if you're watching on Rumble, where I'm going to be focusing more on the comments on Rumble to support the platform, put your questions in the comments because I'll be asking them. So this is a live Q&A, with the guests. So a few quick messages before we jump in, though. First off, if you're watching on Rumble, thank you for supporting a free speech platform. If you're watching on YouTube, I recommend Rumble for you. But if you're on Rumble, make sure you hit that green follow button below the video. The other thing is just mentioning a quick sponsor. So look, as we're seeing what's happening in our country, being prepared in every way possible couldn't be more important than right now, right? So I talk a lot about food storage. I talk a lot about, growing your own food, a lot about, even how to preserve your food. That's just food. Okay, we've got water. We've got also the things that protect your food and water. But one of the other big things, if you look at how governments have controlled the people, it's through their finances, it's through their money, right? And they're warp speeding this central bank digital currency coming in. You've also got this BRICS de-dollarization happening. So the dollar that has been sacred to the whole world for so long, and that's given us the way of life we have in America, it's unfortunately nearing the end of its life. It's a fiat currency, right? Fiat currencies, they come and go, especially when they're the reserve currencies. There's a specific timeline that they end up ending. And so if and when that happens, which all the experts are saying it will happen, our dollar's purchasing power is going to plummet. Okay, so if you've got your assets sitting specifically only in IRAs, 401ks, anything that you have to log into to see, right? If your assets are something you can't actually hold in your hand, there's a risk that you could lose those assets in bank runs or whatever. I mean, history's told us this over and over again. And that's why for me, I'm such a big proponent on gold and silver, because gold and silver are something you can hold. It's a way of preserving your wealth. You hold these assets in your hands. You can preserve that wealth to make sure that even in a collapse scenario, you have something to take care of your family, to pass down to next generations, etc. And so in doing this, there's no company I recommend more than Noble Gold, right? So if you go to goldwithseth.com or call 626-654-1906, what you do, you get this free gold and silver investment guide. Just plug in your information there to do it. And honestly, even if you're just curious about it, maybe even thinking about it, and maybe your husband's not on board, but you're really on board, just go get the guide, learn more about it, set up a free call with these guys and see, because you'll find that the security of having your assets in a place that you know that you're going to survive with it, like gold and silver have lasted thousands of years. They've survived the rise and fall of civilizations, will allow you to sleep better at night. So folks, again, it's goldwithseth.com or 626-654-1906. All right, folks, we're now going to bring on our guest, Mr. J.J. Carrell. JJ, it's always a pleasure having you on, man. I appreciate you making the time for us tonight. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'll always do it. Anytime you call me here, I love talking to you and the way that you give me the wide berth to be able to articulate in depth what's happening to America through illegal immigration. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So, okay, let's take like the big picture look of what's going on here. Right? You and I have been warning in our interviews for quite some time, saying, look, it's only a matter of time before realistically the terror cells, whether they're gang cells, whether they're army, Chinese military, or whatever it is, terrorists from the Middle East, all these people that have been allowed across the border and are setting up camp in our country, that we've been saying it's only a matter of time before this gets activated. And I feel like what we're seeing now is the beginning of the activation of this, right? Where right now it's a few cities, but my concern is that by the time we get to the election, it could be every major city, because chaos is what allows them to change voting laws. It's what allows them to, postpone elections, whatever it is. So what are you seeing though? And when you're watching the reports from Aurora or whatever it is, what's your assessment of what's currently happening specifically with these Venezuelan gangs here in America?
Well, I think the very first thing we have to talk about before we get into the Venezuelans is just, let's get a state of how many legal aliens we have in our nation. It is now, it's not even disputed. It's openly discussed in Congress, and the media does not push back. So you know this, Seth, when the media, the talking heads don't push back on something, it's true, because they don't want to get into it, because they know if they get into it with commentators like myself and you, we start citing data, reports, left-wing reports, and then we start piecing together and go, no, here's all our evidence. And they're like, no, I don't. Just everybody be quiet. Let's not talk about it. I want your audience to understand the number that people have come to understand and agree upon, left and right, is 45 million illegal aliens in America. 45 million. I believe the number is closer to 50, but I'll play their game. I know by the time Joe Biden leaves office, we'll surpass 50 million. That means 1 in 6.5 residents in America is an illegal alien. And I can cite all kinds of data. I can cite studies. I can cite left-wing studies, right-wing, and it all comes to the same thing, about 50 million illegal aliens in our country. And now you start diving down into that data, meaning what's happened in the last 4 years, specifically. What has happened? Well, Joe Biden has arrested and released 12 million people that he has shown in CBP data. He has also flown in, that we know about 1 million people, flown in illegally, like went down into foreign countries, put them on planes, flew them into America, released them into America, and did not count them. So now we're at 13 million. That number really should be about 2 million that they brought in, maybe more. Let's just play their game. And then the open border, meaning there's no border patrol agents working. I talked to all my guys, they're not working the line. We call it the border, call the line. Another 15 to 18 million have crossed. We're looking at 30 million. 30 million is not even argued in the House of Congress. They don't even argue it. They just say, yeah, 30 million. So now let's look at the 12 million out of the 30 that they have actual data on. You have over 1 million Venezuelans. Over 1 million Venezuelans. And it is already proven. Donald Trump has said it several times in his discussion, said it this past weekend. Even left-wing commentators agree. Yeah, Maduro emptied all of his prisons and all of his insane asylums, and they moved them into America. Let me just give you one data point. This is now 2 months old now. Maduro came out of Venezuela and said, we have the lowest murder rate in the last 22 years. Why? Well, when you look at all the Venezuelans illegal aliens that are murdering Americans, you understand that they are all here. And now you see what you were talking about, Aurora, Colorado, and then Chicago. We're seeing the same thing replicated in Dallas, Texas today. The state of Connecticut is now warning like a state of emergency in Connecticut. So I'm telling you, as you just stated, Seth, we are going to see this spread like a cancer across. It's already in America. Has it manifested yet? And has it been documented yet? And that's the big question. No, it has not been documented yet.
Yeah, actually, here I'll go ahead and pull this up. Here's a news article. This is about Connecticut, which is I just found out about this from you today. This is from September 1st. It says, let's see. Actually, this is actually this is Colorado here.
That's
okay,
from Colorado. Yep.
Yep. The officials. Okay, of course, they're saying it hasn't happened, but if you go back to look at Connecticut here, then you can see that there's all kinds of news. Again, so the question, one of the big questions that I have is, my assessment, right, is that there's some sort of broader plan, right, to bring in these different cells. You could call them terror cells, right, or threats, threat cells, whatever it is, right. I'd say that there's 100, kind of hardcore gang members that get, come in and they post up in a small little area of a city. That's a threat, absolutely. So, do you believe that this is coordinated in some way, and that as we get closer to the election, that we're going to see increased levels of threats? And if so, what does that look like? What scale would you expect that to be showing across America?
It's a great question, right? And I've been saying this for quite a while, and you as well, that we are going to see some type of civil unrest, something that's going to happen. And you could almost feel it beginning to materialize. You can sense it. I think a great place to get that kind of feeling is on X, because it's so open now. And I am seeing, and I have friends now, I would call them friends and colleagues in Chicago, where I went and filmed. They're absolutely on the brink in Chicago. They're on the brink. You're looking at one bad shooting, one illegal alien Venezuelan raping a black resident, and it's going to be a powder keg. It's going to explode. It's exploding across America. What does that look like? Are the Democrats or the left, let's just maybe say the left, are they that evil that they would allow American citizens to die and be tortured by gangs in order to retain power? Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when you you said terror groups. So let's maybe we need to enumerate, right, what we're talking about. 250,000 known terrorists called special interest aliens have been arrested and released into America in 4 years. 250,000. Over a million Venezuelans, about anywhere from 500 to 700,000 illegal alien Haitians. Their prisons were emptied during the revolution. They're all here. 60 to 70% of every legal alien that crossed into our border is a single adult military age man, mainly from Africa, the continent of Africa, and the Middle East. America is the most vulnerable it has ever been in her history. We have the enemy inside. We're not even talking about that. We need to add to that group the Chinese PLA soldiers. And I'm talking to people that are in the military intelligence agencies are telling me, dude, JJ, it could be anywhere from 50 to like 120,000 PLA soldiers are here. They're here. So you go full circle with the question, okay, if I know this and you know this, and people that are in the business and we're piecing it all together, the federal government knows this. And they decided to do nothing. In fact, they decided to facilitate it and make it more effective to bring people in. Well, then the question has to be, if you're intellectually curious at all, why? Why would your government do that? Well, one of the answers is because they want to fundamentally transform the United States of America. Demographically, not demographic by race, but by citizens versus non-citizens. But we are looking, Seth, there's a better chance than not that something horrific is going to happen in America in the next 2 to 3 months. Christopher Wray said there's more red flags today than there were before 9/11. That should scare the hell out of everybody. But I don't know if it does, to be honest with you.
That's the hard part too, is that if it doesn't yet for a lot of people, when will it? And that's the thing, is I think that there's a lot of folks that are still just skating through life and kind of oblivious, right? Oh, look at the polls. Wow, Trump's up 3 points. And, oh, like they're just continuing with that. But I also think that there are a lot of people in America that are really paying attention and that are really concerned. And so I've got a couple of questions that I want to start with. We had a bunch of questions coming in, and there's still some more coming in. Just a reminder for everyone watching, let me know what your questions are. But so this is from Bettina on Telegram, who says, thank you for asking him if he thinks there are Venezuelan cells all over the U.S., and if he expects more of what's happening in Aurora and Chicago to affect other sanctuary cities, and what can be done if it happens.
Well, I think that's a great question. And let me take you back I would say it's about 6 weeks, 2 months ago. Ryan, Matt, and I are going to film our documentary. And we're in Aurora, Colorado. All right. It's summertime. It's about 100 degrees, right? In the valley, kind of Aurora is kind of flat and the sun's beating down. And we're going to interview someone, and we're parked in a major intersection. And all of us, the light goes red, and we're all just sitting there. And like that, a dozen Venezuelan single adult males from 18 to 26 come out of nowhere with their squeegees. And they start squeegeeing all the windows. They're wearing parkas, hoodies. They're gang members. I looked at Ryan. I'm driving. I look over the side and say, do you understand this is just the beginning? We'll hear about this place in the next couple of weeks. It will be an invasion in Aurora. And he goes, you really think so? I go, look around, dude. This is the precursor to all the gangs and all the activity. This is the precursor to it all. So we watched that beginning, that little seed, because once they get there, like if you're in any town in America, Ohio, Wisconsin, Alabama, whatever, and you see somebody that should not be there, a group of people, they stand out. They don't speak English. They don't wear the same clothes. They don't do the same thing. They don't eat the same foods. Let me tell you, if you think that's the only family or the only small community, you're a fool. They're on the phone calling, saying, you won't believe what they're doing for us in Aurora. Come on. And then you watch, Seth, which is amazing. I knew this was going to happen, but it was interesting to watch the American public react to seeing Venezuelan gang members with long arms going door to door in apartment complexes and demanding rent and taking them over. And everyone was shocked. I wasn't shocked. I expected it. I knew it was going to happen. When? I didn't know exactly, but I knew soon. And it's happening across America right now. You and I are just talking about Venezuelan gangs. You got Mexican mafia, you got Russian mafia, you got Haitian gangs that their weapon of choice is machete and rape. Yeah. And I need to talk about this too, because I think this is important for everyone to understand. You let savages in your country, stone cold killing savages that come from places that would shock the American person. They could never live in their world that they came from. They're bringing all of that over here. And when they're sitting in our countries and they see that we welcome them, we fed, clothed, medicated, gave them shelter, gave them cash while we're struggling. And they look outwardly into America and they see extremely obese people, men that think they can have babies and wear dresses. And I know exactly what they're saying. Why don't we just take what we want? We always took what we want in Venezuela or Haiti, and nobody had any money. They have money. Why don't we just take what they have? What are they going to do? Look at them. They look like giant wildebeests. They're sick. They're mentally ill. And know what they did? They're starting to take, and not at a little bit, at an industrial scale. Because I'm going to be honest with you, okay? Outside of men like us and some biker gangs that maybe show up or some military people, they're going to win because they're willing to kill. You're not even willing to go vote. They're willing to come into your house with a long arm, stick it in your face, blow your head off to make a point to everyone else. Hey, I just killed JJ. Now, does anybody else want to die, or do you want to give me your money? Okay, we'll give you our money. Because, Seth, who's coming to help you? The Aurora PD? Do you understand? I don't know what Aurora PD, I need to look that up, what their total police force is. I would say maybe 500, maybe, okay? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe 1,000, but I would say about 500-ish, or maybe a little bit more, maybe 1,000. So when you have days off, training, annual leave, sick leave, retirements, let's say you have 1,000 officers.
Actually, it's
you might
748. So you're pretty spot on.
748. Thank you.
Yeah.
748. So out of 748, because I used to do schedules as a supervisor, so now you have 3 shifts. You don't have one. They're not working daylight hours. Maybe they have 2 shifts and they overlap, right? So let's just say 2 shifts. With all the days off and stuff, you might have 50 officers on duty. Maybe 100 max. 100. There's thousands of those people in your city. Let me give you an example. When they reported about them taking over the complexes, apartment complexes, they were in a parking lot at 4,000 of them doing donuts, trashing the parking lot, ramming cars, caused a complete societal chaos. Thousands of them. Where were the police? They can't handle it. They're overrun. They'll get killed. Let's say that they have, out of 4,000 people, you had 500, that's a small number, 500 Venezuelan gang members, whatever, with long arms. 500 to your 100. On your best day on duty, 100. You lose. You get in a gunfight, you're done. So ask yourself a bigger question. How does that look in 5 days, 10 days, a year from now? No, you're done. Aurora's done. You don't understand yet, Aurora, but your city's gone, because all the other Venezuelans from around the country and waiting to come in, they're going to Aurora because they have their system set up. They have their family. They have their gangs. Everything is going to waiting for them. As the mayor and the moronic Governor Polis from Colorado that made their state a sanctuary state. I saw something today, and it caught my name. It caught my attention right off the bat, and it seemed like it was a former military guy, Seth. And he posted on X, and he made a very, very great point, and one I've made and you've made. And it was about a minute long, but it was so fascinating to hear him say it. He said, all of you people in Aurora and cities like that, you're begging for men like me to come help you. Men like me that are MAGA, men like me that have been in military, men like me that have weapons and know how to use it. And he says, you tried to kill us. You took our jobs away. You called us vile names because we wouldn't take a shot. You fired us from our jobs. Then we told you about illegal immigrants. You called us vile Nazi names. And you expect me to come? I'm not coming. We're not coming. And he made one other great point. He said, if we come, we will not come in peace. We're going to obliterate them off the planet Earth. And then what's going to happen? Your police, your National Guard, and the federal government will come and put us in jail. So why? What's the incentive for me to come help you? There is none.
Crazy. I want to hone in on one point that you made, because I think it's really important. And I think that I've done a lot of international travel. I still want to do a lot more, but I know that there's a lot of Americans that haven't, right? Because America is so big, right? You can go to across the country. There's 100 different vacation spots, or 100 different countries. But a lot of times we don't understand the other cultures very well, or the suffering, or what it's like to grow up in the slums of India, or in the streets of Brazil, right? And these
Mm-hmm.
people, they know, like they're hardened criminals. And so you talk about them coming into America and seeing what America is like. I mean, what came to my mind is it's almost like that America, we're so lucky that we've had peace here for so long. But it's almost like we've been living in a cage, right? Which has kind of kept out the bad animals. And there's some safety. It's almost like, let's just pretend we're at a zoo and
Mm-hmm.
we're the deer at a big zoo exhibit. And that's America, and it's been kept pretty safe, and but all these deer have gotten kind of fat and lazy, and they're not really, because they
Mm-hmm.
there haven't been any tigers or anything like that for a century for them to worry about. And so, but then all of a sudden someone takes these tigers that grew up not in the zoo but in the jungle, where
Mm-hmm.
they had to sometimes eat their children to survive. I mean, it was the rule of the jungle. And you take them and you toss them into that deer exhibit with all these fat deer that have had no threat for decades. It's going to be a slaughter. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want that to happen, right? I really don't. And I hope that I still have a strong faith in God that whatever does happen is still under his grand plan. But it's hard to not think like that, because if I put myself in the mindset, say I'm a criminal, I'm a part of a gang in Venezuela, and say I was in prison for killing 30 people, right? Because that's what they do. Like, say you're an enforcer,
Yeah.
right? And I was serving a life sentence in there, and all of a sudden they said, "Hey, we're letting you out. We're going to send you to America," right? And I survived on the streets. I grew up on the streets. I murdered whatever it took to get ahead. You go throw me into America? I couldn't agree more with you. It's like, gosh, what's that guy thinking? He looks around and sees people driving these fancy cars, wearing jewelry, and being kind of irresponsible, and people that obviously can't defend themselves have gotten so comfortable. I mean, to me, it's almost like it must be like a kid in a candy store, except all the candy's free for the taking. I mean, that's a frightening thing to consider. But like there's the meme that always goes around, like the fourth turning, right? Was it strong
Mm-hmm.
men make good times,
Yeah.
good times make weak men make hard times make strong men. So right now we're in that phase where
Yes.
we had the good times in America, but the good times turned us by and large into weak men. And now we're the weak men getting ready to gear up for the hard times. But the problem is that the strong men that in other countries have had hard times for a long time, and they become
Mm-hmm.
strong because of it. They're now coming in with that strength and that will to survive and do anything it takes to get ahead. They're coming into a country that's full of weak men, right? And gosh, it's a frightening scenario when you look at it through that lens.
No, I think, and that's a great analogy of, I never thought of it in that terms and being in a zoo, but it is exactly that. You just took wild animals that have been tearing each other apart and put them in this docile, butterflies are floating around and the deer are grazing and they're like, oh, what is that animal over there? And they're gone. They're gone. Here's two things that I would like your audience to know, just to support what you and I are talking about. Right now, there's demographic studies after demographic studies that show our military age men from 17 to 26, 77% can't join our military. Why? Because they are either obese, drug addicts, physically unable to do it, or mentally, emotionally unable. And 50% of that 77% have two or more of those problems. 77% of our fighting age males can't fight. They can't get in the military. That right there should scare the hell out of you. And the second thing that should scare the hell out of you, we know that this is in more states, but let's just take what Venezuelan gangs have done as of right now that has been documented and now it's getting in the news. Connecticut, Texas, Illinois, and Colorado. That tells you, and they're all doing the exact same thing. They're taking over apartment complexes. That tells you that it's coordinated. That tells you that there is a higher hierarchy of this gang that's saying, this is what we are going to do. This is how we're going to obtain property. This is how we're going to obtain power. This is how we're going to spread our reign of terror. You have to be a complete idiot to think that this is all happening in a vacuum in Colorado, in a vacuum in Texas. No, this is happening because the shot callers are telling their lieutenants, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we did it. You're going to tell me that they haven't done this in Venezuela? Of course. They're not talking about rocket scientists or people that are curing cancer. We're talking about savages that have perfected their savagery. And now they've been brought into, like you said, the little pen with all the little does and their big fat fathers and mothers wandering in the pasture. And they're thinking, what? That disgustingly perverse man that's wearing a dress and thinks he can have a baby is actually giving me my own apartment. They're paying for all my food and same day laundry service. And they actually give me a cash on a card every month. And know what they do? They get normalized to it. And then they go, well, I want more. I want more. Well, I can go to the mall and just take the mall. I can go to a 99 complex in Colorado and take it. Just take it. And I watched this. I don't know if you saw this stuff in real time as it was happening. I started to hear about it, and then I immediately saw the mayor attack the city councilwoman that brought it up and said she's a nut job. She's crazy. And then the governor came and said she's absolutely right-wing nut job. And then after 3 days, they both had to admit, well, yeah, we got a problem. And it's not really one apartment complex. Right now it's 3 going on 4. So you know, once they admit, then you know it's exponentially worse, right, than what they admit to. So this is coordinated. It's spreading. And this is the also part, Seth, is your audience needs to understand. I'd like them to understand. It's not like we shut the border down and now we're going to take care of the mess that we created and deport them. The border's still wide open. We're still averaging anywhere from 5 to 20,000 people a day that are being arrested and released. So whatever you think you're going to deal with, you need to exponentially multiply that by thousands. By thousands. Let me give you another example. I don't know if you've been following this happening in Springfield, Ohio. Have you followed this in the small town in Springfield? Okay, they did it. They talked about it about 2 weeks ago and then they shut it out. Springfield, Ohio. I didn't even know that there's Springfield, Ohio. It's about, please don't quote me on this, but I think it's southwest of Dayton, Ohio. Small town, 38,000 people in 2020. They jumped in population to 58,000. How did that happen? We don't even replace at the replacement level in our birth. What did Amazon move there? Google moved there and then everybody came? No. Over 20,000 illegal alien Haitians moved into Springfield, Ohio. So now 20,000 of your 58,000, so 1 in 3 residents are illegal aliens from Haiti. Their city council, their mayor, their city manager, and their police chief just said, it's over. It's over. We've lost our city. This is happening across America, Seth. Where do you think 50 million people go? You think they stay in the city? I went on this journey to do this documentary. I'm in New York City filming relocation ticketing centers. That's what they're called. So illegal aliens that want to get out of New York City has these big storefronts where you come in and you sign a document saying, I'm never coming back to New York City. And they fly you wherever you want to go in the world. Just get out. Don't ever come back. So what the left hates about DeSantis and Abbott, and I think they did wrong. I don't think you should have infected America with your problem. However, they call them all those vile names, so people don't understand they're doing the exact same thing, but just they're covered by the media and no one's going to talk about it. America You have 50 million illegal aliens in your nation. They're spreading out like a stage 4 cancer. And like Donald Trump said, I'm going to have the world's largest deportation force. And I'm going to tell you and your audience, no matter if Kamala Harris, who is functionally illiterate and so above her stage in life, or Donald Trump wins, there will be blood on the streets. There's no getting around it. We're going to have massive civil unrest. You better buckle up.
That's my concern. And I've been looking at a lot of different vectors of attack on our country. And I have to say that right now, in a very visceral way, I'm really concerned about what happens with these terror cells. And we haven't even seen, China, PLA special forces, right? We haven't even seen, some sort of, radical jihadists, that hit, say one day we've got suicide vest bombers go off in 30 different major shopping malls across the country. You know how easy it is to coordinate that? The hard part's getting in the country, right? The hard part is actually getting in. Once you're in, especially with the oversight, we just had this shooting down in Georgia. The FBI knew the guy had issues. They were following him from last year, talking about he's going to shoot his school up, right? So these things are allowed to happen, right? That's the only thing I can make sense of. But I think that you made a very important point when you're talking about how this is organized crime. And that's something that, look, I'm not a criminal. Like I just, by how my heart is, I can't steal and do evil things. I just, I can't, but a lot of people can, right? And what you find is that if you do that, you can actually get really ahead in society if you're willing to lie, cheat, and steal. Now, you're not going to get ahead in the afterlife, right, where it catches up to you. But for a lot of people, they don't care about that, right? And so when you look at crime and you look at these gangs and you look at organized crime, it's these things are run like businesses. It's run like CVS. You've got the CEO, you've got your branch managers, you've got you've got a whole structure, reporting structure. And so when you mention that this is coordinated, it's like, oh man, why didn't I think about that? I kind of thought, okay, there's these gangs coming in and they're just going to start taking areas and stuff. But no, you're right. It's strategic. And they're starting in certain areas, and we'll probably see that they're establishing bases and then doing this. And so one of the questions I have with this is, in terms of the process, let's say like a place like Aurora, which could be any sanctuary city in America, or any city in America, really. Do you think what they're doing is setting up a base, like where maybe eventually what happens is, you remember the zone out, was it Portland, Chaz or whatever, where they literally kind of, they make their own area, like a district, where it's like, okay, you don't go there because like not even the police will go in there because they've claimed their own rule of law. So is that what you expect to happen with this? Is that we'll start having these zones where more, because it's like, imagine it, right? Imagine if across the country in 20 different areas, you've got, say, in each area, you've got 1,000 Venezuelan gang members, heavily armed, that have now taken up a certain, like they've now claimed like this 5-block radius, and it starts expanding and expanding. I mean, this is what civil war is, right? Civil war, obviously, typically it refers to the citizens fighting amongst themselves, but it's also just war within the country in this way. So, how do you see that playing out? Is that a rational understanding to say that they're kind of claiming their initial kind of, it's like you're playing Risk, right? Where you're claiming this land and you slowly start expanding, forming your own border. I mean, how do you see that going?
I see them, and I think you're right. They're building beachheads, right? They're building, this is my area. I own it. And then I'm going to expand. I'm going to conquer and I'm going to expand. Why wouldn't they? Maybe that's the best question to ask. Why would, if you're a Venezuelan gang, a Haitian gang, Russian mafia, whatever, and you come into America and you took over 3 apartment complexes and nothing's done to you, right? You see it on news and whatever, but nothing's done. Why would you stop? Why would you continue? The answer is, of course they're going to continue. Of course they are. So let's say they take right now, I think it's 4 apartment complexes. They're not roaming around, meaning roaming around the streets and the police can just pick off 1 or 2. No, they set up the corners. Everybody knows who's coming in and who's coming out. And then they own that area. And then it becomes what we have seen in Europe, no-go zones. Ask yourself a question again. Aurora has what, 400,000 people left? 400,000 people and you have less than 1,000 police officers. So that tells you Aurora has never really had any crime. Okay? 400,000, you should have about 2, 3, 4, 5,000 police officers. So you have no crime. In fact, I got to look this up because I heard about it, not fact checked it thoroughly yet, but they just created a gang task force. What? That means there's no gangs in Aurora. Or if they are, you have some stupid white kid gang. Now you have machete wielding savages. So now you have, and also not only are they taking over complexes, broadening out their geographic base, but you have to understand this isn't a real estate takeover and they're just taking into real estate. They're coming in with prostitution, gambling, drugs, child sex trafficking, human bondage, theft. They're doing strong arm burglaries in broad daylight in jewelry stores in Aurora. So this is not, hey, boy, this sucks for those people that their apartment now is run by the savages from Venezuela. So don't worry about it. It's not going to touch us. No, you have to be an idiot to think that that's all they're going to do. It's criminal enterprise. They're going to branch out into everything they can get their hands on. You're going to see home invasions. You're going to see murders, rapes. You're going to see it all. I can go to Whitewater, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Ohio now, Springfield, Ohio, Oakland, LA, San Francisco, Las Vegas, some other places in Nevada. And I can go all the way down through America and I can show you have massive, massive illegal alien crime, murders, rape, kidnapping, child sexual trafficking, child labor. Whatever you think that we're immune from, it's here in America. And it's proliferating because our government wanted this to happen. You can't tell me, no, do I think the federal government is run by a bunch of brainchilds? No. But they're very intelligent in their motives to destroy America. And they knew that this was going to happen. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to say, I'm going to bring in millions of single adult military age men from across the globe and nothing bad's going to happen. Of course, something bad's going to happen. And we're living through it. And Seth, I'm like you. I hope that I'm wrong, but I know I'm not. And we are about to see an explosion of this, an explosion. There's no other way around it. So intellectually, there's no other way. There's no other conclusion you can come to as a rational thinking individual once you're presented the facts and what's happening. There is none. And again, let's go back to Aurora. Let's go back to Chicago. Let's go back to Connecticut, Lily White, Connecticut. Do they have it's a war is about manpower. Do you have enough manpower to beat the other side? And I'm telling you, Aurora does not have the manpower. They're thinking about bringing in a National Guard, for God's sake.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Actually, it leads into what a question. This is from Donna, who asked, ask him, please, when he believes the violence will start on a large scale. I know it's hard to predict exactly, but what are you seeing? Do you foresee violence on a large scale? What's that look like? When do you think that would be happening?
Here's when I think there are two places where overwhelming violence is going to happen. It's either going to happen right before the election, okay, for some kind of mandatory martial law that will shove everything down. Or I'm going to tell you exactly when. If that doesn't happen, I'm going to tell you exactly where. And mark this down on your calendar. Kamala Harris steals the election because there's the only way she'll win. The economy will go into an absolute free fall within 6 months. The stock market's going to crash. Companies are going to, which they did with under Obama, they're going to send trillions of dollars overseas because they're gonna bank it because they're not going to want to get in this inflationary area in America. And then all the money's going to dry up, meaning you can't stay in that hotel anymore. You can't get 3 meals a day. You can't get your free. I need your cell phone's cut off because I can't make the payment anymore. You have to wash your own clothes. I'm sorry, you got to leave. Well, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. Oh, okay. Well, there's 50 million of us. We're not leaving. So what are you going to do, America? Do you have 50 million law enforcement officers that are going to do it? And the answer is no. And I'll give you real-time data. Right now, there are over 5 million illegal aliens in America that have already exhausted all of their appeals, and the immigration judge hit the gavel down and said, you are deported, you must leave. And over 5 million said, go pound sand, I'm not leaving. And they haven't. So maybe the bigger question is that not when this is going to happen, because it's going to happen on a massive scale. And people that have more wartime knowledge, let's call it, than I do, are saying exactly what I'm saying. Maybe the question is, once it starts, how are we going to stop it? And the answer is we can't. We do not have the resources. There's 50 million people in our country illegal. I would say 60% on the low end are single adult military age men. There are 660,000 state and local and federal law enforcement. That's it, people. That's it. And you're talking the vast majority of all those law enforcement are in major cities, New York, LA, San Francisco, maybe Miami, and then everyone else, you're on your own, baby. You got no one to help you. No one. And that's frightening, Seth, when you think of it in those terms. It's a data problem now. It's a bad math problem. Stop looking at this as some moral issue. The morality's gone. America is in a moral rot right now. And you have brought in savages into your country, and you are expecting America to remain the same. It's a perfect analogy. You just brought lions and tigers, hyenas and panthers and everything under the sun that wants to eat and kill. You just threw them into this unicorn and butterfly world. And everyone is riding their unicorn going, it's great life. And all of a sudden a tiger comes out of nowhere and kills your unicorn you're riding on. You're like, well, maybe we need to understand them better. Maybe we should talk to them, right? I love that. Well, let's just talk to them. Like, oh my God. The reason I laugh, Seth, because for 24 years in the Border Patrol, down on the border, and then running task force up and down the coastline, chasing narco smugglers, they're savages. Like, they're stone cold killing savages. So when I see that purple haired dude that's 500 pounds with 50 piercings on his face, and I think, you are the giant wildebeest on the plains, and you're looking around thinking you're all safe, and there's like 1,000 lions, and they're all looking at each other going, no, this is mine. It's my turn. I'm going to take down the wildebeest. And everyone's like, okay, go ahead. That every time I see these people, I just smile and go, God, you are low-hanging fruit, and you don't even know it. They're not, Seth, they're not going to come and take from me first, because they know my American flag's outside. They know I'm going to have a gun, and they case my neighborhood. They go, well, that guy definitely is going to kill me. And then they see an LGBTQ flag flying and a Biden sign or a Kamala Harris sign. How do I know that they're targeting? Because they've already admitted to it in the Northeast. They look for LGBTQ flags and Biden and Kamala Harris signs, and they figure they are beta males, they have no guns, and we're going to go take them. And they do. I call them the low-hanging fruit. They're not coming for us first. They're going to come take that because it's easy. Why would a giant tiger or a lion go chase some gazelle for 10 miles and be exhausted when there's a fat wildebeest sitting there with his door open saying, come on in and kill me. Okay, screw it. I'll just wander in there, kill him and eat him. Then I'll just go take a nap. That's how they think, Seth. That's how the savages think. And we got to stop thinking. You said something perfect is you traveled part of the world. I've traveled the world. The idea that we have been, the idea of everyone's the same. Every culture is the same. Every country is the same. America is great because we stole it all, blah, blah, blah. We have been lied to and conditioned our whole lives to think that we're bad and that we're just like them. Why are we, after 200 and some odd years, the world's superpower, and nations that have been in existence for 4,000 or 5,000 years still don't have running water and electricity? Is that because we just got lucky? Or is it because that we have property rights and a constitution, a bill of rights? We're special. So stop acting like we're third world knuckle draggers and start protecting what we've created, or our founding fathers created, or our forefathers. We haven't really created much except chaos in the last 50 years.
So I've got a really good question, actually. This is from Union Trinity, and I think it's a good way. We're hitting at rounding out at an hour. So this person asks on Rumble, they say, "What is the solution?" And that's it, right? Like, for us, for me, my family, for the people that are watching, the ones that are very sober and see what's coming, right? The hurricane's coming. Everyone else is like, oh, it's just a breeze. These are the people that are saying, look, I've felt breezes like these. The leaves are upturned. The sky looks like this. I can smell it in the air. There's a hurricane coming. They see it. What is the solution that you see that, aside from, hey, let's vote the right politicians in, they're going to fix it for us, right?
They're not.
What's the solution that the average American that cares, what should we be doing? What can we be doing?
Here's what I believe is the solution, is you find people that are like-minded like yourself, and you create a plan, a literal plan, where you look at that man in the eye and you say, I swear to you on my name that when things go bad, I have your back. Will you have mine? Yes. And you can tell who those men are. And then you cobble that together and you have a plan. You have to have a plan. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Do we have enough money? No. Okay, then why don't we, when things go real bad, then why don't we just take our house and we'll just live in our house and we'll secure our house? I think you need to have guns. I think you need to have some type of currency, physical currency, and then that is going to happen. This is, I hate to say it, right? But statistically, probability, looks more real today than it did 3 years ago, right? Or did under Obama. It has a great probability to happen. Prior to that happening, or getting to that point where I have to have and I have buddies, we've already made our contingency plan. We know each other. I'll kill for him. He'll kill for me. We'll take care of our families. But prior to that, what you need to do is you need to take over your city council and your mayor, and you vote in your sheriff. And then that mayor handpicks the chief of police. So now I have a small town or a county that has no illegal aliens are allowed in here, no homeless shelters, no Section 8, no deals with federal government, no nothing. And we're all armed. And we have a militia, meaning we have a standing army. Let's say I live in a town or a county that has 50,000 people, and 10,000 men have signed up and been deputized. When this happens, you are automatically deputized. I just ring a bell, and now you are our standing sheriff. And now that county partners with another county, and then another county, and all of a sudden I have a state. I have a state that is America first. No illegals are allowed here. I don't want any of your money government. We're self-sufficient. In fact, federal government, I am now taking back, I don't have to ask you, It's in the Constitution. Your rights are enumerated. I have given you all my rights. I'm taking them all back now. You have to take your city council, your mayor, your school board, your sheriff, because that's the only way this is going to happen. Or just prepare for absolute war. What does that look like? You and I have had this discussion. I don't know, Seth. I don't think it's going to be the Civil War where it's the blue coats against the gray coats and we're going to shoot, and red coats, we're going to shoot each other, and oh, I know killing. It ain't going to be like that. I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be horrible, horrible, unless we take our country back. Our founding fathers gave us the blueprint. If you have a tyrannical government, it is your duty, not maybe you should or you should think about it. It's your duty to overthrow that tyrannical government. Do we have a tyrannical government right now? Is anyone going to disagree and have an argument with me that we don't have a tyrannical government? So what are we doing? We're just sitting here waiting like that fat guy with 50 piercings sitting on the savannah waiting to be eaten. That's what we're doing. We're just sitting here going, well, when's the pain going to hit us enough to get involved? But my answer is, don't worry about Washington and the president and the Senate. That's so corrupt. It's so corrupt. President Trump, I want him to win. He is not Jesus Christ. He's not going to change everything. He is going to be a shield for us to do the dirty work as he keeps the savages at bay up there, if he can. I don't know. I think you get prepared mentally, spiritually, and physically. Be physically ready and mentally ready to do what's needed to do. Like law enforcement guys. I'm not talking about the average do nothing pencil pusher at law enforcement, but guys like me and my buddies. We put on our uniform, we click in our duty belt, have our vest on, and we are singly focused. If this happens, I'm doing this. I'm not waiting. I'm not second guessing. If I feel a threat, my gun's coming out, I'm going to my target, and if he comes at me, I'm killing him. Period. And if you do not have that mindset in this world today, you are behind the curve and you are now the low-hanging fruit.
It's good to have this kind of a sober conversation. And I hope that folks share this conversation because, look, some might say, oh, it's fear-mongering. I'd rather be a little bit scared and let that fear, keep me up a little bit at night and say, Seth, you got to do this. You got to get your food storage in order. You got to do this. You got to build your community. Go talk to that neighbor that you've seen, right? Like fear can actually be really good for us. If you're walking in a jungle and you hear, growling and you see some sort of thing looking at you, your fear is what helps you stay alive. So fear is actually healthy. The problem is that a lot of people these days, they in fight or flight, or freeze, really. They get scared and they freeze. Mm-hmm. Well, what do I do? What do I do? And then they just go distract themselves online. So I think it's good to have these conversations. But before we wrap up, though, I do want to just touch on your documentary, right? Which is, so I'll pull up the website, which is thisistreason.com. And so actually, I'm going to play the trailer. So first off, before I play the trailer, when is this coming out?
Well, I'll do this in 60 seconds. I know you have time pressed up. Ryan Matta, my business partner, decided in March, and then we started filming in April all the way through August. We are going to film a documentary called What is Treason? And we're going to prove that the federal government opened the borders intentionally to fundamentally transform America, and we were going to prove it, and we did. Halfway through this documentary, an issue popped up that began to take over every part of our documentary, and that was child sex trafficking. Dominated it. We knew we had to talk about human trafficking, human suffering, but it began to dominate to the point that Ryan and I decided we'll see if God gives us enough money and sales that we can fund another journey and talk about the child sex trafficking. We had it all laid, right? Everything laid out. We're going to do that in November. Unbelievably, we shot so much footage and had so many interviews with top level people that we have a standalone sex trafficking documentary. We talk about the suffering of the kids. We talk and as that important and the number of kids being sold, but our documentary is not solely about the suffering of children, but who has facilitated the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. And that would be the U.S. government. It sounds absurd. It sounds crazy until you see what we've discovered and what we put together on film. You're going to be shocked to understand that your federal government has trafficked over 500,000 children into America. And what Ryan and I decided to do, well, what do? We're selling a documentary called What is Treason? We can't charge for this. We don't want to charge for this documentary. So we decided, you know what? Everyone that's buying the documentary pre-sales on thisistreason.com, they get both documentaries. We don't care. We want to get the message out. So on September 13th, we go to a film festival in Texas. We're going to release Treason Trafficked under the banner of What is Treason? Treason Trafficked, all about the child sex trafficking, September 13th. October 24th, we're going to release Treason Invaded, all about the open borders and the destruction that has happened to America. So 2 documentaries for $9.99, so basically nothing. So if you can go to This Is Treason and purchase a pre-sale, Ryan and I did all this on our own. All of our money, tens of thousands of dollars on our own, because we knew that if we went to Amazon Prime, Netflix, if they bought it, they would shelf it, or they would tell us, hey, bro, you're not talking about this. Okay, no, we're talking about this. So we made a conscious decision. Then let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's trust God, and let's just do it. And we did it. And I'm successful. We're successful, and we're going to shock the world. And if you listen and you just pay attention a little bit, you understand the child sex trafficking is now becoming the number one topic in America. It's all anybody talks about now. The DHS Inspector General came out last week and said, in fact, Health and Human Services and DHS has lost over 320,000 children. And we know the number is closer to 500,000. They have not admitted it yet. And where are they? As Donald Trump says repeatedly, a lot of them are already dead. And he's right. They have been sex trafficked, organ harvest, and then child sex and child sacrifice their bodies. This is true, and we're going to show you, and we're going to prove it to you. And it's going to be shocking. Shocking. Not for shocking effect. This is reality. This is what you're looking at, America.
Gosh. Well, let me go and play the trailer, and then we can go from there. So, okay, so I'll go and full screen it, folks. This is the trailer.
I'm going to take you on a journey that's going to prove that Joe Biden and his administration are traitors, and they have committed treason against America. I only have one question for you, but before I ask that question, I want to take you back in time. We're going to transport everyone back to January 19th, 2021, the day before Joe Biden takes office. And I'm going to stand before you, and I'm going to say I came from the future, 4 years from now. And I'm going to tell you what this man's going to do. First day in office, he is going to sign 94 executive orders to eviscerate every immigration policy Donald J. Trump has put into effect. He will take a border that was the most secure border in American history and turn it on its head. Within 4 years, Joe Biden will have arrested over 12 million people. 250,000 of them will be special interest aliens, which in other words, in layman's terms, terrorists. They'll be arrested and released. Since the time he's become president in the 4 years, Joe Biden has created the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. He will have arrested and released over 500,000 unaccompanied alien children called UACs. Their ages are from infancy to 17 years old. They just released them to a nation that is the #1 consumer of child pornography. Connect the dots. Our government is destroying America from within. I will not stand by and allow it to happen. That's why I'm going to go to across the nation, and I'm going to show you the manifestation of this treason. You're going to see crime that you can't even fathom. You're going to see a degradation of the social benefits and welfare for American citizens being ripped from them and given to illegal aliens. You're going to see cities like Chicago, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and you're going to see them divert tens of millions of dollars. In New York City, they're going to divert almost $12 billion for illegal aliens. The city of Chicago is brought to its knees police, social welfare, murder, crime, you can't imagine. Hundreds of millions of dollars for illegal aliens, and I don't care about my residents. They can all pound sand. We are living in a world where our government hates us, and I am going to go on a journey, and I am going to prove it to you. And the question I have after all of this has been done, if everything I tell you is the truth, and it is, do you call Joe Biden a patriot or a traitor?
So, man, powerful work. I know you've got some more updated trailers that are showing more of the progress, but that's a good one that shows, especially your involvement in this. So, the website thisistreason.com. I encourage everyone that's watching, go there, pre-order. Let's get this information out. In addition to sharing this interview, because more Americans, and this is a heavy conversation we've had tonight, but more Americans, I think, need to understand just how serious this is. Like, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. My hope is that we won't descend into the chaos, but I'm going to be prepared if we do. And I can't prepare if I don't know what that chaos looks like. And that's what I think is part of my duty, is to show people this is what chaos could look like. So prepare. So JJ, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Do you have any final thoughts as we're closing out here?
No, I agree with everything you're saying, and I hate coming on and having these discussions. I wish I was having a discussion of Donald Trump's second term is coming to an end. The border wall's finished. Everyone is thriving in America. The economy's booming. Everything's going great. No, it's not. And I don't take any joy or pleasure in having these discussions. None. I love my country just as you do. But to stick our head in the sand is meaning you are complicit in the crime against America. And I won't do that. So it's a heavy topic. But when countries fall and people take over your country, it is heavy. It's worse than heavy. You lose everything. And we're about to lose everything. And I don't think that is dramatic or hyperbole. It's staring you in the face. You have to acknowledge it.
I couldn't agree more. So as we close out, just want to remind people of our sponsors. So Noble Gold, so goldwithseth.com. The other thing is it's really relevant. Survival food, right? So maybe you've got companies that you're working with, or you've got some buckets already. My personal recommendation is try to get at least 3 to 6 months worth of food per person in your family. And that's like to me is like the bare minimum. So the company that I've sourced a bunch of this stuff. I've tried it. Heaven's Harvest is the number one company that I've discovered. Quality of food, strong Christian patriots. So it's heavensharvest.com. You got a promo code Seth, SETH, to save 15%. Again, now is the time. And whether it's Heaven's Harvest or it's buckets of beans from Costco, it doesn't matter, right? Just do something. But if you're looking for a company you can trust, Heaven's Harvest. JJ, it's been great, man. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more shows as the year rounds out. We're gonna have a lot to talk about. Hopefully some good news and hopefully some positive things. Yeah. But I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate what you're doing to educate people. It's really important. And I hope that, again, more of us can be prepared for the worst, but collectively hoping for the best. And maybe, the divine providence will come down upon this nation once again. So thank you so much, JJ.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Take care and God bless, man.